my most controversial videos where the driver of this red Mini was in the incorrect lane for their intended exit and collided with a Land Rover that was exiting the roundabout from the lane closest to the roundabout to try and better explain why I said most likely outcome here is a 50-50 split responsibility outcome. Before we get into the liability though, if you enjoy my liability reviews, do make sure to drop a follow. So ultimately both drivers have done wrong here, but many people cannot see past what the red car did wrong, which means that they're blinded to what the driver of the Land Rover also did wrong. And ultimately for this it comes down to something that is drummed into us when we first learn how to drive, and that is to never assume that somebody is in the correct lane on a roundabout. But it seems for many this is something that they forget the minute that they pass their driving test and get a full licence. So yes, a highly likely outcome of this situation is that it will be settled on a split liability basis. On roundabouts where there are multiple lanes on entry and or exit, for instance where there is a dual carriageway as in this clip, the car exiting from the lane closer to the centre part of the roundabout has a duty of care to check it is safe and clear to be able to exit the roundabout, and it would also be unwise to assume that a car to the left of them is in the correct lane and about to exit, per the case of Grace and Tanner. This is also detailed in Highway Code Rule 187, in which it says in all cases you have to watch out for and give plenty of room to traffic that may be straddling lanes or positioned incorrectly. This also includes large or long vehicles that might need to straddle or be in other lanes to be able to traverse a roundabout safely. Rule 185 also explains that cyclists, horse riders and horse-driven vehicles may also use the left lane to go completely around the outer edge of the roundabout, and you should also be watching out for those. Now, me explaining why the Land Rover driver takes a share of responsibility does not mean that the driver of the red car is absolved of all of their negligence. I want to make that very clear that both drivers did wrong. Both drivers broke rules of the Highway Code that are equal in stature. The red Mini broke Rule 186 of the Highway Code for being in the incorrect lane on the roundabout. The reason that I concentrated more on what the Land Rover driver did wrong is because those who watch this without objectivity get blinded by what the red Mini driver did wrong, that they cannot open their minds to the possibility that both drivers actually did wrong, which is why both drivers can be found liable, as I mentioned earlier, per the precedent-setting case law. This also does not mean that it will be the outcome every time, as usually to fight liability on this you will need to have the driver of both cars available who are ready and willing to fight liability and give evidence in court. It's entirely possible the driver of the red car could tell their insurance company that they were responsible and would not be interested in fighting liability. If that is the case, the likelihood is their insurance company would just admit liability because it's unusual for a liability case to proceed to trial without the involvement of the person that is driving. But it is absolutely correct that if both drivers hold the other responsible, that the outcome could be a 50-50 settlement. Lovely jubbly, sound as a pound.